Hey guys, thanks for tuning in.
If you're not familiar with the channel, my name is Ange.
And I'm Chris.
We've been overlanding for a year now in Australia in another vehicle and recently purchased a new one.
Now we've decided to buy a pretty big vehicle because we want to have a kid on the road in the next couple of years. Now, without further ado, we bought a 1983 ex-Australian Army Mercedes Unimog truck, and it is an absolute weapon. We have owned it for about 3 weeks now, still coming to grips and learning all kinds of things about it because it is a bit over our head. I want to do a walkthrough today, show you the vehicle stock as is, before we basically modify the hell out of it and turn it into a real weapon of an expedition truck for international travel. All right, let's get into it. We'll start here in the command center. So it is an 8-speed manual transmission. And then here I've got a forward and reverse lever, V for forward, R for reverse. All I gotta do is crank that up, and then I have 8 gears in reverse. I can go 85k an hour backwards, which is pretty bizarre. Then I've got my air brake, obviously your handbrake, and then trailer braking here, which I'm not using. On the front, you've got your normal air controls, no aircon whatsoever. And if I flip this up, that's heater, which we really don't need because this truck is pretty hot in the cab, especially here in Australia. I've got lights to tell me what gear I am in. I can't jump from 1 to straight over to 5, for instance. I've got to go into my next series of gears. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I can basically start at, say, the traffic lights in even 4th gear. And most of the time I'm driving around in 7th and 8th gear. All right, so I'll grab the camera here. Now moving here, so we got just obviously normal window water for the washers. Got a voltmeter. It is a 24 volt truck, so it's normally sitting here around 28. We have our military light switch. So on the left side here, we've got our normal headlights, and on the right side, we've got S1, S2, and S3, and that is for the stealth lighting for the convoy. On here, up on the front, we've got all the warning lights, and then I can fold this back, and that stops aircraft from being able to see me. So that's a military thing as well. I can charge USB at the moment, but I'll be upgrading that. And then on here, I've got oil pressure, fuel gauge, which isn't working so well at the moment, coolant temperature, and then I've got my main air. So that's got 2 needles, and that needs to be up around 12 before I'll take off. But when the truck is cold, I'll need to let that build up in air. If I hold down on the accelerator, that'll power the air up faster. Just your standard tacho and speedometer. That controls the brightness of these lights, which are green at night time. On this side here, I've got warning, hazard lights. I've got a key that you can't actually remove, so that stays in there. I guess the army lads are losing too many of them, so I'll need to change that over just for my security. And then up here, we've got, this is all air powered. Next switch is 4-wheel drive. And then the switch after that is air powered diff locks front and rear, which is pretty cool. Other than that, it's very, very, very basic. I have a lever under here, which is my fuel cutoff. So when the engine's running, if I turn the key off, the only thing that does that just turns off my lights and things like that, but the engine keeps running until I cut that lever. Then we just got a standard glove box, pretty basic, filled with stuff. And then Ange is going to show you the gun hatch. All right, so show us the gun hatch, Ange.
All right.
Falling apart a little bit, so I'll need to fix that. Nice. All right, same thing on the other one.
Thank you.
All right, and push up.
All right.
And that goes all the way back. All right, grab that camera.
Welcome to the outfit penthouse.
All right, and there would be a machine gun there on the front. And on the military crane versions, they could actually have the levers here and they could control the crane from this hatch as well. So it did serve dual purposes. Most people seem to remove the hatch so that they can chuck a roof rack on, but I'll fight tooth and nail to try and keep this.
All right, back inside.
All right, so just show you kind of the seating arrangement, which we probably will change because they're not very comfortable. Pretty basic seating, but I do have quite a lot of controls for it, but there's only so far to go back, so I don't have a ton of leg room here. That's just how it is. On the side here, this is actually a gun holster, and there's one on the passenger side as well. I guess these guys had a small rifle when they were driving around. Space for a fire extinguisher. And then I've also, which I forgot to show you before, I've got a exhaust brake as well for going downhill. There's that lever I was telling you about as well. All right, come around the other side. Now on the passenger side, these were obviously set up to be left-hand drive from Germany, but what they did is basically the steering column still comes through here, but then it goes up and goes all the way across to the other side. So it wasn't like a full conversion. So that's pretty bizarre. So if I remove this, you can actually see the steering column go all the way over to the steering wheel. Luckily it came with this massive bottle jack, which a lot of the trucks didn't come with anymore. And then I'll pass this over to Ange on that side and show you how this seat works. So there's a couple of levers on here. I can fold the seat right down like so, pull out this lever, and I can shove it down in there, and that's apparently meant to lock, but it doesn't seem to too much. The purpose of this is that you can stand on the back of the seat, not slip over, and fire your machine gun out the hatch. So that's pretty neat. There's a little bit of storage behind, but not a lot. Windows in the back for no apparent reason whatsoever. And so a lot of this is going to be getting changed, but that's how it is stock. Pretty cool. All right, starting off with the front of the Unimog. Pretty straightforward, I guess. The Australian Army version had this sort of steel grille in front. It just comes off with 2 bolts. I guess that's to stop animal strike and birds and whatnot. Now, the actual bonnet and the quarter panels are actually fiberglass on the Army version. Not 100% sure why. If anyone knows that, please let me know. And the bonnet actually requires a specialist tool to open up to get to the engine. And the grille in front here, past this one, folds completely away and makes it easy to work on the engine. And also the Unimog, the entire cab lifts up and forward if any servicing needs to be done on the transmission, so it makes it easier to get to. Has a snorkel stock, which means it can ford just the way it is right now, safely 1.2 meters of water. Got this big heavy duty bull bar on the front. We've got the stealth lights. I'll talk more about that later. Normal headlights, I will be upgrading those for LED bulbs, but I'll probably keep this square headlight look because it's quite retro and I like it. These were placards for Army insignia. I'll probably be removing those at some point. And the number 12 you see on the Australian Army versions means that it has a 12-ton GVM, and that is to do with crossing bridges. So all of the Army ones have that 12 on it. Other than that, we had on some versions what's called a Pto Winch, which used to stick out really, really far and wasn't actually rated for a huge amount of weight. So the Pto Winch was engine driven and had a separate lever in the front. This version doesn't have the Pto Winch, but I was always going to chuck an electric one on anyway, so that didn't faze me too much. When Ange and I bought this vehicle, it had these giant elephant ears that stuck right out with loops on each end, and that was for picking it up with like a Chinook helicopter and transporting the Unimog for Army purposes. That was illegal for us to road register in Western Australia with those on, but I still have them, so at some point I may incorporate that into a bull bar at a later date. So coming down here, one thing that makes the Unimog incredibly unique is the fact that it has portal axles. What portal axle means is that the axle doesn't go directly into the wheel like it does on most vehicles, but rather it can be quite a lot higher, and then there's actually gearing inside each wheel. So that enables this huge amount of clearance here. They're 42-inch tires, but obviously if it didn't have portal axles, this big pumpkin here would be much, much lower. So as you can see, super heavy duty, everything's incredibly over-engineered. Massive steel bash plate for the engine there. And yeah, that's the front of the Mog. One thing we're really enjoying is having a nice giant windscreen now. So yeah, that's really good. All right, coming around to the side. So pretty straightforward, I guess, but in here we've got some whopper shocks, some really heavy duty shocks, which I will be upgrading and some absolute beefy as springs. Now the wheels that came stock on the Australian Army ones are not a beadlock, but a lot of people upgrade to a military Hutchinson wheel, and then we will be upgrading to a larger, thicker and wider tyre that's a lot knobbier. We haven't really appreciated these in the sand very much. You can bag them out a little bit, but there's just no side tread whatsoever, so they do bog down in the sand a lot more than I would like. Now coming around, we've got number 1 air tank, we've got dual battery box, and that's 24 volt, so 2 batteries in synchro here. Stock fuel tank is 160 litres. Got our other 2 air tanks here, so the entire system is run on air, so that means that it's incredibly easy to repair in the field. What happens is once you engage forward drive, that pressurizes the transmission with air and means that water can't get in, and then another notch from forward drive goes to twin locking differentials, and they are air actuated. Coming around, pretty straightforward. The Army one had twin jerry can holders. We'll probably be removing those for storage. In the back, we've got stealth lights. Basically what that meant, and I've got a control in the cab, is that during convoy missions, these guys could go to pretty much stealth mode, and that stopped aeroplanes and whatnot being able to see them from the air. And all they needed to do with their stealth lighting, which is really dim, is basically just point at this cross in convoy, and that enabled them to see each other in the dark and maintain pretty tight formation when it's pretty much pitch black. We've got like your standard truck glad hand, which one of the only mods we've done so far is just installed this one here so that we get air pressure from one of those tanks so we can use air tools and pump up the tires. Huge tow hitch for a big military trailer, but we will be changing that and probably just putting a normal tow hitch on if we do it all. And these were the other points for airlifting the MOG up. Other than that, back folds down. Inside, in the back of the trailer, we've got it filled with our camping junk at the moment, so I won't show you, but there is just, it's pretty straightforward. It's just a wooden flooring, huge big space there, and then on the sides are just bench seats which fold back. Now around this side, we've got a tool holder, so we've got pickaxe. It is missing the handle for the pickaxe, shovel and axe. And around here, we've got 2 toolboxes, so we've just stored some stuff in here and locked them up, and room for the spare tyre. I will probably need to make modifications to this spare tyre mount to be able to mount the big Hutchinson wheel and Michelin tyre onto that, because it is much thicker diameter. And then you've got just this little pulley system that you attach to the tyre, and that enables you to lower it because they are very heavy. All right, so now I'll show you into the engine bay. There is an easy way to get in once you remove all the grill and stuff, but for now I'll just show you the hard way. You've got to open these all up with a special tool, and then hand through here, push that open, and here we have it. A 5.6 litre straight 6 turbo diesel, and that produces 520 Newton meters of torque at 1800 RPM. You can upgrade them and get more out of them, but that's a bit of a money pit, so I'm not going to chase that little wormhole quite yet. We're going to focus on turning it into a bit of a house on wheels, and then maybe I'll look at that down the track. So it gets basically 85k an hour on the highway. It can cruise all day long. We could maybe push it to 90k an hour, but it wouldn't go faster than that. So it's not built for speed. It is geared for low range off-road. And what I love about the Unimog is the fact that it is an off-road vehicle built to handle the road, as opposed to all other four-wheel drive vehicles, which are an on-road vehicle built to handle off-road. So it basically is a tractor, and that is really what Unimog means. Universal Motorgerät, which is basically a universal tractor for the world. And it was exported in so many countries, not only for the military, but for roading, fire, ambulance, as well as command vehicles. Basically does everything. So yeah, pretty wicked vehicle. And in its heyday, a couple versions before this one, it was basically the first tractor that had equal sized wheels. So pretty neat. I love its history, and it's proved already to be a real weapon off-road. Gets a lot of smiles, and yeah, we're really looking forward to building this up and turning it into a really nice home. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you got something out of it. Any questions, please let me know. Obviously, I'm not an expert of this thing yet, but I plan on being, but I'll answer any questions I can. Stay tuned for our build series as I turn this into yeah, something a little bit different, but something pretty cool and unique. See you there.